Simpson. Well, as we've just been discussing, I have been listening to you for years and years. And so I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit starstruck talking to you. However, I'm going to be very professional and say welcome to the next chapter.
Well, it's lovely for you to say those nice things. If I've made a tiny impact in anyone's life, I appreciate that. And thank you very much for having me, Ellie. It's a real treat.
Oh, you're more than welcome. We will talk about how much you've helped me as we move on. But we start as ever with the prologue. So you grew up in Bracknell, just outside Reading, and you say you had an absolutely fantastic childhood. How lovely to hear.
Yeah, I know it's probably quite boring. Because many people have had quite childhoods that were much harder to deal with than me. But no, I grew up, I think, at a perfect age. So I was born in 1991. So I had kind of a blissful 10 years before the internet. So I got outside, I played in the woods, I met my mates on the streets, and then I was able to make the most of the internet and do all of that. And I had a really good balance doing that. And I'm an only child. My mum and dad are my best mates. I imagine there was probably a period where I really did want a brother or sister. I'm glad that I don't have one now, just because I got on so well with my parents. And it sounds terrible to say, not in a spoiled way, but I really wanted for nothing. I didn't live in like a PG Woodhouse novel or anything like that. I wasn't constantly laden with gifts, but I just kind of, if I wanted something, it would be there. But I knew the value of cash, and they kind of brought me up to be quite bright. And my mum and dad both worked, and they worked very hard. So because of that, I went to childminders at quite a young age after school when I was, 4, 5, and 6. And I like to think I'm quite good with words, and I'm quite verbose, and I'm confident, and I can speak. And I put that down to having to talk to kids that were much older than me at a childminder when I was 4 or 5. And so that's a good thing. And also my mum and dad were one of those parents where they didn't stop doing what they enjoyed doing just because I was there. So if we ever went out for meals or something with their friends, I was expected to come along, and I wasn't given a book or a Game Boy to read. It was like, no, you're at the table, you can chat with us, and we'll see what happens. Yeah. So that's a long way of saying I had a pretty blissful childhood.
How lovely. That sounds, that's really good to hear, Dan. So I say this as a mum of, I've got 2 boys, but actually, just, your mum and dad were just, it sounds so simple, but yet it's not, but just doing their best, provided a lovely, comfortable, warm home for their son. And look, that's exactly, that's what we want, isn't it? It's as simple, but as difficult, but as simple as that.
Exactly. And I'm at that time, so I've been married a year, 18 months now. I imagine there'll be a point where we'll think about starting a family. And it's one of those things, I don't think my mum and dad ever thought about how they were going to do it. They weren't planning a trek. They weren't thinking, right, this is a huge adventure and undertaking. What are we going to do? How are we going to raise this child? I think they just kind of took it day by day. They had some beliefs on how they thought a life should be lived, and they just tried to pass that over to me. And I say that because as maybe thinking about starting a family myself, shall I ask them? Do I try and mine them for any advice? Will they be able to give me any? Was there any plan? I don't really think so. So you just kind of, I remember I was very, very disciplined. I think mainly because I didn't do that much wrong, if I can say that. I wasn't ever that much of a naughty child. I probably spoke out of turn. I probably was quite loud in school a few times. Yeah. But I just think I was always I never wanted to really disappoint them because I just loved being around them so much. So I didn't really want to rock that relationship by maybe giving them a reason to be too angry with me, I think.
I love that. But that's the gift, isn't it? They were loving. They pass that on to you. You'll be loving. That's the gift. That is, we're going off on a little diversion here, Dan, because this is I might have to get you back for a parenting special or something like that. And so what, you say they worked hard. What did they, or what do they work as?
They're both retired now. My dad worked very hard, but he moved jobs all the time. And it was always the manager's fault. And I had a chat with him recently, and I said, if everyone's finding a problem with you, maybe it's not them that has the problem. Maybe it's something you're doing. But he was kind of into sales and did stuff. He's an engineer, really. He's got an engineering mind, which I don't have, and he would service anything that needed fixing. And then he discovered that selling the things actually paid you more money. And my mum, I love her, but she's the least ambitious person in the world, and she just kind of worked in shops. I think she worked in an optician's as a sales assistant for most of the time I was growing up.
Still sounds lovely. Sounds absolutely lovely. So, meanwhile at school, you said you enjoyed performing, and that you obviously were very and are very clever. You say here you were fairly bright, quite average academically, but you like performing. So that obviously the seeds were being sown then for what you went on to do.
Yeah, I think so. So I think in primary school, I was, in the top, the top handful of bright kids at that age. I then went to a school that wasn't a grammar or a private school. It was like a state school, but only in name, really. It was quite selective. So I was lucky enough because my parents did a lot of work to try and get me in there. And I think academically I was just pretty standard, but I've always been quite bright, always quite switched on. I think I've always had quite a good sense of humor, and that with a bit of confidence can kind of buy you a lot. And I just always performed. I discovered I loved. I'll go back to when I was young. My parents would always kind of put me up in front of people, and I'd be talking to people who were full adults when I was about 6 years old. And I think I just enjoyed being the center of attention. And then when I discovered you could do that by acting, you could stand on a stage and do that. I mean, it was amazing. So I did loads and loads of that when I was growing up. I think to the point of just getting a bit exhausted with it, really. The problem, everyone rebels a bit when they're a teenager. I rebelled against myself. I knew that I was good at this acting thing. And I thought, well, if I'm good at this, I'm going to see if I'm good at anything else. Turns out that was a bad decision to make, because when I was about 15 and I'd just done so much of this, I thought maybe there might be another path. So I went to do other things when probably I should have carried on doing the performing and maybe tried to go to a drama school and been an out-of-work actor as opposed to a slightly out-of-work radio professional. So who knows?
Who knows? And who knows where the future will take you as well, Dan? I mean, you are only still just beginning, really. But you say that. But so when you say about with radio, when this was more sort of when you went to university, your mum and dad always loved radio, and so did you? This is where you started to look at doing that? You were drawn to the radio there.
Yeah, exactly. So when I was growing up, was surrounded by radios. There was always noise on. I could still sing you like the 1995 Radio 2 jingles if you really pushed me to do it. And
go on. No, I won't.
It was always there. And then, as I say, I kind of stopped acting, but I knew that a form of performing was probably the sensible option for what I wanted to do. And I can't remember where the actual idea of presenting on the radio came from. I just saw it as an option, and I did it at university. No surprise, the course doesn't last anymore. And I think this stems from what I say. I was bright, but probably average academically, so I knew I wanted to go to university, but doing English or PPE, Oxford or Durham was probably out of my reach. So I went to do radio production at the University of Gloucestershire, which is preposterous to say now. But I had so much fun there. And what it did it just threw me into being around radio and being in a studio and learning how to do it. And I got because the course is, I guess, a touch Mickey Mouse is what you could say. And because of that, there were a lot of people that just didn't know what they wanted to do there. They were on the course with me, and they didn't really care about radio or doing anything. It was just a chance for them to go to uni. And I couldn't believe that they didn't really have a work ethic. And I remember, well, you're spending a lot of money to be here and you're not turning up to lectures. You're not like doing the work on the things that we should at least do, even if you might find them a bit preposterous. So I remember, I don't think it's that grand to say I excelled on the course. I was one of the only people to get a first on that course. I won awards when I was at university, and I seemed to do very well. And that's just because I decided this was what I really wanted to do, and I was going to put the work in because I was there. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and I then really developed a drive in deciding this is what I wanted to do when I was older.
But do you not think, now Dan, I'm going to just use a little bit of my amateur psychology here, and
Please.
I underline the word amateur. But when you were saying earlier about you with the acting, it obviously is clear you and your mum and dad, this came with your mum and dad, from your mum and dad, but you had a really good work ethic, and you are very clever. But it, like you say there, with the radio, then you knew this is what I really want to do. So with the acting, maybe deep down there was a part of you that didn't it didn't have that, because you would have done it with the acting had that been the case, because it shows you've got it, it's in you, isn't it? And then you went there and you could see what this could mean, it sounds to me, regardless, that you were in exactly the right place.
Yeah, perhaps. Or it could be interpreted as maybe just 5 years of madness. Like, because about 2 years before I went to university, I decided I didn't really want to do acting anymore. And then in that 2 years, I decided I was going to, actually being a radio presenter is what I wanted to be. And then I did that at uni. And I think then, as soon as I got out of university, I then phoned one of my old acting mates and got into doing plays again with them.
Okay.
But was doing that very much on an amateur level, because although I can stand up on a stage and I can learn lines and I can do the basics, I think I'm taking myself out of that for 5 years. I probably missed the moment where you really develop and hone the skills in how to do everything that makes you really, really good. So I think because I missed that, I was never going to be brilliant, I think. And ever since that, I've kind of been flirting with the idea of maybe wanting to dip my toe in again. But is that wise? And it's really, really tough. And that would mean I would need to get an agent, and to do that, I'd probably need to go to a drama school, and to do that, I'd probably have to spend quite a lot of cash, and that's unworkable, I think, at my current stage. So I'm at the point with that now that I will see where else the radio takes me, and make the most of all of that, and do as much amateur acting, much like your amateur psychology, as I can really try.
Well, we will come on to this later, Dan, because when we get to the debate to be continued, I see, because you're a seasoned podcaster professional, you're jumping here, so I'm going to have to rein you back in on that. Just come on now, stay on track. But so you said, so you knew that this is exactly what you wanted to do. Can I just ask, that Gloucestershire, that's not in Cheltenham? Was that in Cheltenham?
Yeah, so I lived in Cheltenham, and
Lovely.
It was just the most idyllic place to go to university, by the way, because it's not big. It's not like a that rowdy a uni town. There was one club that we would go to, and it was just like being in your front room. Just all your mates were there for a house party all the time. It was just the best.
Yeah.
That was what was really great about it.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of friends, one who I work with and one who's there now, and it sounds great. It sounds a really good course, and I say that as somebody who's in broadcast journalism. Anyway, we digress. So, but what I am fascinated about is, so that then, and how this all came together, is that you ended up, basically, one of your first big gigs, you say, out of university, was being flown to Florida to interview Morgan Freeman. So what was the job that you... And we should just say as well, while you were at university, you also worked as an entertainer at Legoland.
Yeah, so in the summer breaks, I grew up 10 miles away from Legoland. Everyone kind of from the local area would try and work there, and I worked there as an entertainer, which was the best thing ever. I did 1 year working on the rides, which is really rubbish because people have paid loads of money to get in, and your job is effectively to tell people that they're too small to get on. So you're only ruining people's day. As an entertainer, you were improving it because they didn't expect you to be there. I'd be wandering around dressed as a brick, or I'd be juggling, or I'd be kind of, flicking frisbees into the air. Brilliant. And that led me to then, because it was entertaining kids, and I guess because of my manner and my energy, people had always told me that I should work in kids' telly or be a Blue Peter presenter or something. And so one thing led to another, and the natural path was that I should present for the UK's children's radio station. It's called Fun Kids, and it gets kind of somewhere close to 1 million listeners more or less every week, we think. And in the first year of me working there, just one of those things that came up. And I think before I was doing the whole thing, I probably would have been a bit startled and amazed at my luck. But I think at the time, because I'd been working with Fun Kids for a few months by that point, and it was just par for the course. There was a strange email that came in. It was at the time when Fairly Average Films were spending a lot of money to get you to talk about it. And yeah, I was flown to Florida to chat to Morgan Freeman.
Amazing.
It was good fun.
And so were you how incredible. And so by this stage, were you working as like an interviewer?
I was working as a presenter for the radio station, yeah. And just a general part of that job was these fun press things would come up and you would go and do them.
Wow. And how was he? How was Morgan Freeman?
Yeah, I mean, you must have done a junket or two in your time, Ellie.
Yeah.
Like, so you're shepherded into this waiting room and you're there for quite a while, and a film company will buy a movie star, will have a movie star's talents time for a day or so, and they are getting through it. I think Morgan Freeman probably chatted to 80 people that day. And I was like number 70 about a film that he probably didn't care about. So it was amazing to have the opportunity, breathtaking to be sat, 3 foot away from him. But I don't think he was really in the mood to chat to the energetic English boy at that time.
No, you didn't do your Legoland moves on him, and then that's what you need.
No, but if I'm in kids mode, like I'm up there, like I'm this, but probably a slightly higher pitched and with more energy. And yeah, he wasn't keen.
Well, you never know. You have to get him on writer's routine if he does a book, and see how he is then. But so this is, I mean, to this day, you are still, that's what you do as well, isn't it? You're part, and you present with Science Weekly.
Yeah, so I do quite a lot for them, actually. I present their weekday show, which is 1 till 4. Which is, all manner of kids, because you get some young kids and some that are on the drive home from school. I also present their Science Weekly podcast, which is, I guess, one of the biggest kind of family science podcasts in the world. And it's gone out on tour over this year as well, which has been amazing, just traveling all over the country with a live science show. With so many arenas. It's been fantastic to see kids that, I do that. Like in my front room where I'm chatting to you from right now, Ellie. And yet it's the same with the writing podcast. And yet you don't want to be too grand about it, but it has touched people's lives and made a difference. And when I'm on tour, I'm seeing all these amazed 8-year-olds who, and I'm not speaking out of turn here, but they're like, for some of them, I'm close to the center of their universe. Like they listen to the show every night. So yeah, I still do that. And it boggles my mind the impact that it makes.
But how incredible, because it's for children, and being able to sort of articulate to them and engage them. I know how hard that is, but also to science, which is a wonderful thing as well. And you really do that all from home, do you?
Yeah, mostly. That we have a studio that's just off Oxford Street in central London. But kind of since COVID, it's been a bit flexible, so we can do it from home if you like. And it's taught me. I'm glad that I've started my career in this way, because I think if you can broadcast, if you can communicate with an 8-year-old, you can really talk to anyone. Yeah. Because there's so many people get it really, really, really wrong. And if they think they're talking to an 8-year-old, they're probably actually on a 5-year-old's level. Like kids always want to be older than they are. So people always get that wrong. And, I like to think that's one of the reasons why the writing podcast has done fairly well, because also I'm a radio professional at the end of the day, so I know how to do these things. So that's always, it's been quite handy, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go on to that, I should say as well, because you also do freelance. So you work at radio, because I grew up in Burnham Beeches, so I wasn't a million miles away. And then my parents moved to Berkshire, and used to always listen. My mum loved Radio Berkshire. But you do a little bit you work all over, don't you? For BBC Radio London, all across the South East. So you've got a lot of variety.
It's a lot of variety. I've probably come into radio at the worst time in the world because as soon as I left universities, just like all the radio stations closed, right? When you were growing up, there was local radio stations. You'd have your kind of shock jock wherever you were, all gone, all done. Everything's mainly centralized now, but I am lucky enough to freelance around kind of the southeast for BBC local radio stations. So whether that's Berkshire, Oxford, Solent, Sussex, Surrey, Kent and London, like just kind of they'll hire me to present or report and just kind of be a fun presence on air, I think.
Oh, mate. I mean, that some would say that is an ideal job with the science as well.
Yeah, my mortgage advisor wouldn't, but
Yeah.
I think it's fun. Yeah, I think it's good fun.
I think it looks like you live in a very nice house. Very nice house. And but this is what did fascinate me. So with Writer's Routine. So then you started the wonderful podcast that is Writer's Routine. And so this is how I discovered you. I think I saw it in maybe Red Magazine or something like that. That's how I discovered you. And so I was, as you know, working as a journalist, wanting to be a writer. And was going through terrible, terrible things of being rejected and all this. But so your podcast is obviously exactly what it says. It's right, which again is brilliant. It's genius, Writer's Routine. But you have interviewed everyone, like all different writers. And what I love about it is it's like the proper, again, the ins and the outs and where they sit and what they look at and why they write. But then I would hear from there so many of their stories of how they'd been rejected and it taken them years. And it's those stories. I mean, it's almost kind of, I would say, why it inspired me to do this podcast. Because I think when you hear these stories, you think, oh my God, it's never going to happen. But when you hear this incredible writer who has had lots of rejections and years and years and years, and not only that, then their books don't do very well and they keep going and they keep going and they keep going. Then you think, oh, well, maybe I'm not crazy. I'm not silly doing what I'm doing, which is why I do this podcast, because it's like the ins and the outs to show it is possible. But like you're saying there, somebody looking at you would think you've got it completely all worked out, but you're saying you're still wondering, it's a human part of life that we all go through. So I would just say again, well, thank you so much, because I go running and I'd listen to it and I'd be like, I'd come back to my husband like, it's okay, it's all right. They were rejected too. And so what made you decide to start that?
A few reasons. I've always been fascinated with the back end of everything. So I love all of those shows on Amazon, on Netflix, whatever it is that takes you behind the scenes. I'm forever doing that. I'm forever reading diaries from different authors or celebrities. I just love the back end. And I really wanted to be a writer because I enjoy storytelling, but I couldn't ever get past kind of 20,000 words. And I couldn't kind of make time work. And I just thought, well, through the Fun Kids work, I kind of had access to a lot of authors. I was interviewing them anyway. And I just thought, well, if I chat to authors about how they do it, maybe I can figure that out for myself. Maybe they might have some advice and help on how I can plan my day to give myself the best chance. Maybe a bit like you. It's nice to know that they've gone through the same struggles that I have had. So that's really how it started. I was just interested in how they got the stuff done.
And this was it 7 years ago?
Yeah, 2017 is when I started, and it's been going more or less weekly for those. Oh, is that 8 years now? It's 2017. It's 2015, not 2025. Yeah, so it's more or less weekly for the last 8 years. I think we're kind of pushing 400 episodes, with peaks and troughs along the way. Look, it's not my dad wrote a porno. It's not like I don't know, the Parenting Hell podcast that Rob Beckett and that's like it's a niche show. It's the niche of the niche. It's not just a book podcast. It's about writing. It's about the pen that someone likes to use when they are writing.
Yeah.
So the audience is always going to be pretty niche, but I like to think quite dedicated. And the irony of the whole thing now is I chatted to authors to try and teach me how to make time to write, and now the podcast takes up so much of my time that I find it really hard to find space to write. But if it kind of helps, like if it's helped you write a book,
it has,
then that's great.
I mean, not only has it helped me write books, I mean, it helps me write books always, but it gave me hope to keep going. And I think it's that part of it, which is the hardest, is harder than anything, is because it's the easiest thing, isn't it? When you've got publishers, not easy, that's probably too strong a word, but if you've got people behind you and saying, look, you're great, and then your book doesn't sell, that's tricky, that's hard. But when people are saying to you, this is no good, or we don't want you, and you don't, to keep going, but to hear, I mean, you've had you've had Ian Rankin, you've had, I mean, I'm suddenly gone blank now, but you've had everyone. I was listening this morning to Sebastian Faulks, but Janice Hallett, I love her, you know, just, and you hear, and you discover, I discovered people through your podcast, but just, it gives you enjoy it even more because you hear the human side of it. I mean, Ian Rankin is a classic one of how he nearly gave up, you know, and he was writing on his desk, and, you know, they couldn't afford things, and not only that, many books were published and they didn't do very well, and that was getting harder and harder, and it's just so encouraging to hear that. And I think I love a niche because I think that has helped me so much.
That's really great to hear, because I'm kind of out of the world of trying to write a book at the moment, because I'm so focused on the other things that it slipped from my mind how tricky it is. So for me, the interesting thing is, where they sit, what's around them, how they plan their day. But to hear that that's also that it's really helped you keep going.
Oh yeah.
That's really great to hear, and I guess something that I should drive home more. So thank you for that. Outside of that, we've been very lucky with getting good guests on the show. There's no secret, I've just sent them an email. It took me a while to kind of get on the press lists of publicists emailing those to me, and I was very lucky because the first episode we published, so one of the first authors I chatted to is a crime writer called Karen Slaughter from America, who's huge. Like, I had no clue about her at the time, but she sold millions and millions of books. She did not need to come on my show, which didn't have anyone listening to it at the time. So I really lucked out when I did that. And
well, I don't know that it is luck, because obviously you're very easy to talk to, and I think the fact again that it's so specific, and I think there's very few good podcasts for writers, and I actually think I'm not sure if the listener listening to this now, you whether want to write or not, I think it's quite fascinating to hear how people write books. It's like you say, you like the back end, to hear about that, even if it's behind the scenes at Marks and Spencer's. but I and when you say we, is there a we, or is it just you?
No, it's just me. I think I've got into the habit of saying that to make it sound grander than it is when I talk about it on the show.
Yeah, I do that. I say we, and actually it's me and my dog.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's me and my cat, Tiggy. That's it.
There you go. You're the we. And so, but also 7 years ago, podcasts were kind of popular. They weren't probably so many as what there are now. But also, again, and I say this with my broadcasting hat on because it's very easy. I hear this in the TV world, but now, yes, there are so many podcasts, but there's still, they say, a massive appetite, and it's kind of an industry that's only just beginning. So you came through in something, and because it wasn't so big as what it was then. So again, I think it was very clever to recognise that you may think that it kind of just came about, but actually you really got something at a very good time.
Yeah, no, I'm not thick enough to appreciate that. There's been certain waves and booms of podcasting along the way, and I think around that time, because of where I was in my career, I saw it happening again and it being a bit more democratized and maybe easier for you to make a much better quality show. And because I was working radio, I thought, well, I'd like another way for people to find out who I am. So that's why I did it then. That's another reason why it exists, I think.
Like you say, we're going like very niche now and going into the ins and the outs. But do you find, presumably, because of what you've been doing, the technology side of it all, but you probably were used to that, but probably the marketing side, that's something new to you, was something new?
I think, massively new to me. So the problem with doing a podcast, and what people who don't do it don't understand, is it's not just doing the thing. So it's not just me emailing an author reading their book, interviewing them, editing it, putting it out there. Like that's the easiest thing of the lot. The hardest thing is to get people to listen to it. It's almost a full-time job, and it's never been harder before. When I started, social media wasn't as fragmented as it is now. So if I did an interview with, say, Serene Rankin, he might stick it on Twitter, and that might get me a few more listeners who wouldn't have found the podcast otherwise. But now, no one's. Where are people, right? Are people on Blue Sky? Are people on Threads? People aren't really retweeting anything. So it's so much trickier. It would be so much trickier to start a podcast like mine is now and try and rely on big names getting listeners, because I'm not sure they do anymore.
But you've done that. I mean, you've had 1.5 million downloads. You've won awards. It's really. It is, and to do that on a weekly basis like you have around all your other stuff, I would imagine you're working very hard all the time.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you found it from the Red magazine, by the way, because I remember when I got that happened. Like they never tell you these things are going to happen. I was in the Guardian the other day, and a friend of mine just sent me a picture. He said, "Oh, I saw this at my nan's house. Your podcast's been recommended," and I had no clue it was happening. And I remember someone from Red got in touch and said, "Oh, by the way, you're being featured this week in this kind of thing. Can you send us a good quality podcast logo?" So it's amazing that you found me through that. It does take a lot of work. Yeah.
And did you get in touch with the Guardian and Red? Do you put yourself out there?
No, not as much as I did. So I think what happens is because the show is at a level now, and there aren't many book and there aren't many writing podcasts, especially.
Exactly.
So there will come a point in the year where a features writer or something will decide that maybe now is the time that everyone should get into writing. What can they do? That podcasts are big. They'll stick it on Google, and then mine pops up. Brilliant. They don't need to do any more research than that. The clue's in the name. It's called Writer's Routine. So that is fantastic. And it's taken a lot of work, and we're at almost 2 million.
That's incredible.
Listens now, and thankfully it took about, and it probably took 4 years to kind of make any cash at all.
Did it?
Yeah. That's become slightly easier now because the companies that pay you have opened the floor a bit. So the threshold of what you needed to earn before you got a payout isn't as high as it was.
Okay.
But now advertisers find me. Now I can get sponsorship. Now people are kind enough to support the show on Patreon or whatever it is, and that helps me put in the hard work that's needed, I think.
That's incredible. But again, you kept going for those 4 years as well. You really did. And I know this is a very difficult question to say, but of all the people that you have interviewed, is there anyone that particularly stands out to you that you say now?
It's really tricky because I kind of look. I've done almost 400 episodes. If you tell me, like, if someone tells me, "Oh, I really enjoyed this chat with this person," I will be able to rifle through the shelves in the mind and kind of pick out some things that they said. A lot of it, because I come from a background of radio where you're doing a show every day and it's kind of one, and then you're on to the next one, you're on to the next one. I really don't. I try and make every episode the best that it can be, but when it's out, I'm kind of done with it.
Yeah.
So it's always. It sounds a bit hokey, but I'm always trying to look forward with these things. I'm trying to rack my brain.
Have you ever been starstruck? You know, like when I started this one with you. Have you ever been starstruck?
Have I ever been starstruck? Not by anyone. I once went to. Many people have opinions on him as a writer and a person. I once went to Jeffrey Archer's house. And I was starstruck by just being there. Like I was, because he lives in a lovely, lovely penthouse flat in London, right on the river. The lift takes you from the lobby right into his front room. And that was just a bit, it was just a bit, oh, this is where this has got me now, is it? It was more that rather than being starstruck. And it's not, I just don't really, I've never really, the only people I'm starstruck by is when I'm a big supporter of Wycombe Wanderers Football Club.
Oh,
if I see a player face to face, out of context, they're not on the pitch, I literally don't know what to do with myself. I cannot speak. I've done some work with the club before, and I kind of fall to pieces. So that's the only time I'm really starstruck.
Now we know. See, it was that Morgan Freeman. Once you did him, you're like, same old, isn't it? That's the thing. But going back to the Karen Slaughter, what I would say is that I wonder as well, the kind of podcast you do, it does really respect writing. And you are very respectful. And as we say, all writers, whoever they are, because it's not something that, you might know someone and that kind of thing. You have to write the book. You have to put your head down and write the book, no matter, I get there might be ghost writers or whatever, but these people are writing their books. So I would imagine like somebody like Karen Slaughter just is very grateful to be able to talk about the ins and outs of what they do and to be heard, because you don't get that chance to say that. We all want to be seen, really, don't we, at the end of it all? And that you give that, and I can understand why she would want to do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I always enjoy speaking to. It doesn't really happen face to face anymore, because most of them are remote since lockdowns. But when I would chat to debut authors, it was their first book. They hadn't done any promo before. They really didn't have any knowledge of how an interview was meant to go. And when you would get in a room with them and kind of shove a microphone in front of their face and like watching that type of writer come to life with the questions that they were asking, I'm asking about where they write, how they did this around like working a 10-hour day. Like, I really enjoyed seeing how they would start to thrive in that environment.
Yes, well, you've got to keep going. I'm going to move on to be continued, and if you tell me you're not going to keep going, Dan, there could be a dramatic pause in this recording. So, but for your to be continued, no pressure. What would you like to do next?
I don't really know. It's awful to say, isn't it? I guess probably I will need to write. I think somewhere deep down there is an image of me earning a living writing. I think that's how I do. I think I could take you through my perfect day. Actually, I would wake up, I would present a radio breakfast show somewhere, then I would spend a few hours writing, and then I would go and frolic and kayak and run by a river. So that's the ideal dream.
There you go.
There is a part of my brain that sees me writing for a living. That's not immediate. I can't, I'm a 34-year-old man now. I can't carry on. I can't be a kids radio presenter forever, as disappointed as the children will be.
Why not though? Why not?
Well, because I'm talking to an 8-year-old, right? Which is great. I love that I can do it, but the reference points become further and further away for me, right? So,
but we still love, I still love the people I grew up with and would be happily. I suppose the children get older as well, don't they? That's the thing.
Yeah. So the audience would kind of grows up with me, and then we have to refresh and recycle. But that's not going to happen too soon. I don't know what the next chapter is.
What kind of books would you write? What would be your genre?
Right, a bit of everything. It sounds like I just always enjoyed doing a lot of different things. I've one of the reasons why I didn't want to do a quote proper job while I really enjoy freelancing is I'm much better, I think, when I've got 10 things to think about rather than one. So I enjoy kind of skimming in and dipping out. As a creative, I'm not very good, I don't think, at building things from the ground up, which is strange because, you're chatting to me on the success of a podcast, which I did do from the ground up.
Yeah.
I know, but I think my skill lies in kind of coming in at the top end at like presenting and just putting a little bit of something else on top and then getting out of the way. I think that's where I'm more creative. So if I could use that, keep busy and publish some books and still have food to eat and can afford to go on a holiday every now and then, I think I'll be pretty chuffed.
Hang on, and are you still going to keep doing the podcast though? Because I've heard the breakfast in the morning.
The podcast.
Thank you, Dan. I'm a bit worried now.
As much as it can, unless I have to completely call it quits, unless some company is willing to pay me loads of money to do a 9 to 5, where I don't have to be in an office, where I can speak in front of people for a job, I don't want a lot. Then the podcast will continue. I think. Yeah, you're okay there.
Also, what about the acting though? Because the reason what I said earlier is I interviewed recently on this podcast the brilliant and lovely Bill Ward, who played Charlie Stubbs in Coronation Street, who basically Tracy Barlow killed him.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah,
and he didn't start acting till he was 32.
Okay, oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And I would love to give it a go. I've got a wife, and these things are always really boring, aren't they? When you're growing up, you never think of like actual family practicalities getting in the way. I just don't know if I could really subject her and other family we may have to like years of not really earning a lot anymore.
Well, in the spirit of paying things back as you have to me, I'm not suggesting you should listen to the episode, but if you did, it might be worth listening because things suddenly changed for him as well. And so this goes back to what we're saying. So here we are. So this is where it's a full circle, Dan, because you helped me so much. You didn't know who I was, but there I was running around the downs listening to your conversations about writers, but it also inspired my podcast where you have the ins and the outs of like how people keep going and what, but his story is very different, not one you would expect. So
I will listen because he's from the best era of Coronation Street as well. Yeah. So I will listen.
Yeah, and he's a very lovely man as well. So I think you'd have a lot in common. So I think, there you go. Look at that. See, it all comes full circle in the end. So for your acknowledgement, who are the people who you would like to thank who have helped you along the way?
Oh, I think, I think can't really have done anything without my mum and dad, just because, as I said at the start, I think they went into it, as they would admit, without a real plan of how they were going to do it. But I think you, as an only child, I could be more spoiled than I am. I think they kind of gave me the room and to develop what I am and who I thought I could be. And what they did brilliantly as well was they just gave me the confidence to at least try whatever I wanted to be. Like there was no pressure. There was no, like, I went to uni to do radio production. It's not like they were pushing me, you must be a doctor. It was, look, if you want to give this a go, you can at least try at being anything, which I'm incredibly thankful for. Even today, like, I'm delusionally confident. I think it's why I don't play sports, because I'm annoyed that I'm not as good as I really feel like I want to be. But I just, the one thing I really am. It sounds so grubby to kind of say you're proud of your confidence, right? I think that's the thing that nowadays we don't see as like a trait or a value. But I am very thankful that I can kind of go into a room and I'm not I'm not starstruck by anyone. I can just go in. I know who I am. Let's have a chat. Let's do this. And I'm very thankful I can do that. And that all comes from, I think my mum and my dad kind of telling me that I could really. So always them.
And all those going out with their friends and being with grown-ups or feeling a bit uncomfortable. But and no, I think that's great that you say that about confidence. I know if our boys were, I would feel very happy as a parent to see them be confident. So that is a lovely thing to say, and I think that's lovely you should say that. And so for your advice, Dan, so for two things here, very specifically, if somebody is listening to this and they have always thought about starting a podcast or like the idea of it and have got no idea where to begin, and again, like what you say, sort of worried that nobody will ever even hear it or listen to it, what would you say to that person?
Well, don't worry that no one's ever going to hear it, because someone will listen to it. It just might not be loads of people for a little while. So push that out of your mind. I would say, really, it's never been easier. There are like you and I were chatting over Google right now. It's never been easier. You can buy a microphone cheaply. You can do it on your phone. You can record so simply. Most people are really, really keen to chat to you. Everyone loves to be buttered up. Send them a nice email, whatever you want to do. It's never been simpler to get involved. And make it to the best that you can do. If you make it great, if you have a passion and you show that and you and you make it sound as good as you can possibly be, it will find an audience. So just do it, really.
And you have, by doing that, I mean, it's all here about sort of creating a life you love. And you obviously are very fascinated with books and writing and the kind of questions that you do. So you are spending your day with your science, with your children presenting, and then with books. And you're doing it a lot from home. You've got a lot of agency. You may not feel it, but you do. You're not going into a boring job that you hate and you have to be 2 hours away. So you really have created a life that you love, really, in a subject that you're fascinated about, which will help you one day when you're a writer.
Yeah, I think so. You don't really give yourself the space to think of it like that, but yeah, when you boil it down to it, I think that's right. And it's great to be able to cover so many different things, right? To do the science for kids, to do the book stuff for adults, I would imagine. It's nice to have that full coverage. I did a Science Weekly live show a few weeks ago, and afterwards, the really excited girl, came to see me, absolutely science mad. She couldn't believe it. So we had a selfie, and then her dad said, "Oh, by the way, and I love listening to the writing podcast." I felt a bit sorry for the rest of the house, that it was just like my voice echoing around all the time.
Dan is the man in that house. It really is. But for somebody who doesn't know what they want to do, and somebody even, I mean, again, you interview lots of these writers who haven't started writing till they're much older as well. So it doesn't, we're talking to, maybe you're in your 50s, 60s, and you're still thinking, do you know what? I've never really known what I wanted to do. And I still get this feeling I don't know what to do, but I would like to just try something. What would you say to that person? How would they even begin to find what they want to do?
Would you find something that you want to do? I think it all starts with just getting outside, doesn't it? Maybe that's a bit hokey, but I think all good passions come from just going for a walk and having a think. I've spoken to so many authors who a key part of their day is going for a walk in nature, surrounding yourself with what is real, and ideas come from that. We find it tremendously tough, I think, because we're surrounded by noise, whether the radio's on when you wake up, whether you then immediately go on social media, then you're chatting to colleagues, you've got family problems, then you come back and watch telly. Like, we don't have space anymore. So I think if someone doesn't know what they want to do, just find time to give yourself that space. You're allowed to think it through, go for a walk, really mull over what it is you like. When do you feel most alive? When do you feel what they call in flow? When does all that extra clutter, when does that just disappear and you find yourself really concentrating on one thing? What gives you that? So find out what that is, and then just do it. Send the first email.
And you clearly, I mean, you're very good at putting yourself out there. This is something we talk. In fact, I was talking about it with friends last night that I saw for dinner. But one of them, she's a brilliant, incredible lawyer, and now has to, just by the nature of the world, has to start doing social media, and that is, it's something, I mean, it's something I struggle with, lots of people. And I think it's different when you're putting yourself out there. But you do that, and you do it very, very well. What advice would you give to somebody who does find it just so hard? And also this, I know we said it in the notes when you sent about perfection, that I think we all get bogged down with the idea of something being perfect, and we have to be perfect. But you show that you don't actually, it doesn't have to be like that.
No, it sounds really... So, yeah, the first one is, it's the classic, isn't it? Don't let perfection get in the way of good enough. Obviously, you want to make something as brilliant as you can, but don't stop yourself. Don't wait until it's really perfect before you put it out there. And this sounds just incredibly... Look, we've established that I like to think I'm quite confident, and I've always grown up that way, so I really don't know what it's like to be a bit afraid of putting yourself out there. It's just the way it is. But like, ultimately, no one cares.
Yeah,
that sounds really brutal, right? But if you feel like you've made a fool of yourself, the world spins. There's a new day. No one cares. Yeah. Really, and that might sound quite cutting to hear, But don't let that bog you down. Don't let how other people see you kind of get in the way of how you see yourself. If you think that this is what you want to do and this is how you should do it, then just take a leap, take a step. No one cares if you fall over because you'll pick yourself up again within seconds. So it's really fine.
Yeah, that is such good advice. It's really you in your own head, isn't it? That's the person that's judging you the most, and it's getting over that, isn't it? And equally, if there were to be people around you that did take some kind of pleasure, they're not your people anyway, really, are they?
No, and I can, I can say that, but I still let the voice in my head get me down all the time. It's just finding out a way to cope with that, which is half the trickiest thing. For me, I like to get out and have a run, which is incredibly cliched, but it's just one of the things that help me. And to your point, it's who you surround yourself with, isn't it? You need to surround yourself with, I guess, what do they say? Zappers, energy zappers, not sappers. So yeah, that really helps me when I remember that.
I think it is good. If you do get I'm conscious of your time. If you do get that, like if you ever get moments, because you're doing a lot there when you're with broadcasting and then with the interviews and then putting the editing and all of it. When you do have those days where you feel a little bit, oh God, you know what? I'm not sure about this. What do you do? How do you get through that?
I go for a run. I probably read. I cuddle my cat. And I just, we don't really do this anymore because quite rightly we focus on what's really going on behind our, how we're feeling. We want to mine that. We want to get to the bottom of it, which is absolutely fine. It's perfect. I sometimes think putting a brave face on is a brilliant way to go.
Yeah.
I sometimes think if things are really tricky, or if you have it not really, really tricky, if you're having a bad day, and I might be saying this as a point of naivety because I've never really struggled with any long-term mental health, but I sometimes think taking a deep breath and putting a brave face on can at least trick yourself for a few moments just to believe it is, and maybe give yourself a path to figure a way out.
Yeah. And then you carry on, and then you put those podcasts out, and then I listen to it, and I mean, but it is, isn't it? It is exactly that, and knowing that we do all go through it, we do really do. And so finally, as I have told you before, Dan, my dream is to write the kind of book that someone would read on holiday, like in a day, like easy reading, but really enjoy it, fingers crossed, and then talk about it with their friends, say that night, or their partners on holiday. What is the book that you couldn't put down on holiday that you would recommend to somebody else? I mean, that's quite hard because you've read a lot of books.
Yeah, but I'm a slow reader. I'm a notoriously slow reader. I just have to read a lot to do it. The only book I feel no, that's not true. Not the only one. The first book I read in a day was The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which if you've not read it, it's kind of multimedia. It's a whole story about squabbles in a drama society. It ends up with a murder. That's not a spoiler, it's on the cover, and it's all kind of told by email, and you fly through it, absolutely race through it, and I love that. That's what I would say. Or any kind of travel book. I'm looking at my bookshelf, that's why I'm not looking at you. A Time of Gifts by Patrick Lee Firmer is fantastic, about a guy who years and years and years ago decides to walk from the Hook of Holland to what is now Istanbul, and it's about like the luck that he gets along the way. I'm not sure that's a great holiday book, because do you really want to read about other countries when you've escaped somewhere yourself? Maybe not, but it's worth a read.
There you go. It came to mind. Yes, it did. Well, Dan Simpson, I was a little bit nervous interviewing a podcaster and somebody I've been listening to a lot, but you have been truly wonderful. And thank you for getting me over my nerves and just for everything you're doing, because it really has changed lives like mine. So thank you, Dan, for just being such a wonderful guest on The Next Chapter.
That's very kind of you to say. It's lovely to hear nice words about you. So thanks for having me.